Hi guys. Today I'm going to talk about inspiration. It's a question that I get a lot, what my main inspirations are. And I also want to talk about creating our own inspiration and also not relying on inspiration. When I was young, I felt full of inspiration constantly. Did any of you go through that phase when you were 11, 12, 13 years old where you could never seem to get ideas out fast enough? Some of you might be there right now. I was going through sketchbooks at light speed, and sometimes I felt like my drawing skills didn't match up to the ideas I was seeing in my mind's eye. As I've gotten older, I've found that if I want to dig into a topic, a lot of the time I need to find that inspiration for myself. Not every job will perfectly align with the things that I personally find inspiring, and I found that it's really important for me to be able to cultivate motivation internally. One of the activities that I find creates inspiration for me is sketching. Here are some sketches that I did exploring the shapes and body language of African wild dogs or African painted dogs, from reference and from imagination. When I'm drawing a new animal or a new creature, I like to really explore the subtle shapes and forms. What I find personally inspiring in this process is figuring out what makes the animal unique and what mood or emotion it evokes from me. For example, in these wild dogs, I found that their natural expressions, they often look humorously bored or angry. Doing studies like this also helps bridge the gap between what you see in your mind and what you can put down on paper. And this is the mileage, and finding joy in the experience of putting in mileage has been really important for my growth as an artist. Going back to traditional media in general is a really motivating experience for me, partially because of happy accidents. Digitally it's possible, but takes kind of a conscious effort, which is like a weird thing involving accidents, to try and recreate this type of happy accidents. Where traditionally it just happens, whether you like it or not. And in this piece, I experimented with a colored pencil that ended up creating a really cool foggy effect by accident. And I was like, wow, cool. Fog. Fog is really cool. And I found myself inspired by this idea of fog. Alright, so let's get going on this piece. So doing a lot of preliminary studies is usually really motivating for me. That way I really feel like I understand my subject. As I got started on this piece, the only thought I had in my head was that I wanted to do something cool and cloudy and foggy and involving an African wild dog. I also wanted to create a creature, a character for my project. So, for my project, I need a cast of characters to work with, and I decided that the best way to motivate myself to create these would be to challenge myself. I'm a person who is ridiculously motivated by challenging things and just challenges in general. I was that 10-year-old doing stupid stuff because someone said, I bet you can't do this. So the challenge I came up with for myself is to create 10 creature character designs that fit in this world I'm creating. Each one has to involve a new creature, preferably one I don't have a lot of experience drawing, and I have to do sketches, preliminary work, studies, and then a final rendered painting for each character. I have a list of 30 possible animals I can choose from, and I'm aiming to do one of these at least once every 2 weeks. Because I work full time, and during crunch time for each episode there's a lot of overtime, I can't be as exact with my schedule as I wish I could be, but in general I'm aiming for 2 of these character paintings each month. So there's something else that I actually wanted to touch on. It's this interesting phenomenon that I've noticed. So before I started this current job that I have, I freelanced exclusively. And since starting this job in-house at a studio, I've actually found myself even more inspired to work on my own projects in the downtime. I get up earlier than I ever have before, 6 or 7 a.m., to work on my own projects until I leave for work at 10. I think that part of this is because now that I'm physically leaving my apartment for work every day, my time here is so much more easily experienced as being precious. These are precious moments where I get to sit in the early morning and work on things for myself. A lot of the time, my brain hasn't even fully woken up yet. I tried to record a video in the morning once and could hardly get 3 sentences out without pausing for half a minute. But the process of painting becomes so instinctual and joyful in these hours. It feels like being 12 years old again. What I'm painting is for me and no one else, and while that's not the only thing I like to do, I really enjoy my commercial work too. It's something that's really valuable to me. So now I've got a list of some things that make me feel inspired that are self created, and this was important for me to discover. When people ask for my inspirations, my first instinct is always to list artists, movies, and music and nature. And these things are all really important to me, incredibly important to me, and I am going to talk about them. But I wanted to start by talking about things that are personal, repeatable, and self created. Challenges, studies, and waking up early have to have precious moments alone with my art. These are things that I can practically create for myself in order to cultivate motivation. Something else that I wanted to mention is how when you find joy in studying and practicing your foundational skills, that gap between what you see in your mind and what you put down on paper will quickly diminish. And in the moments where you don't feel an ounce of inspiration, you can rely instead on your internal motivation and your knowledge of these foundational skills to carry you instead. Inspiration can be fleeting, and sometimes there won't be the time to cultivate your own, and having a fallback to power me through those late nights and difficult assignments really helps me rest easier. Alright, so going back to when I was young, I think that a lot of us who create any sort of fantastical artwork were inspired by some sort of fairy tale as a child. And when I was little, my fairy tales were Studio Ghibli films. I know that they aren't classical fairy tales, but I really do feel like they had the same effect on me. The first one I saw was Kiki's Delivery Service, and I was really, really young. The one that enchanted me the most early on was Castle in the Sky. Something in it resonated with me. The magic felt real. I felt so certain that out there in the world, I would find the same magic. I had the movie on VHS and I watched it over and over and over again. I remember being 6 years old and trying to copy the art on the VHS cover. Every time I could sit down in front of a piano, I would try to sound out the song that Patsu plays for his pigeon flock. I was at a Blockbuster with my mom and I saw the VHS for My Neighbor Totoro. I don't know why, but something just gravitated me toward the movie. We didn't get it that day, but I remember at night begging her to go back sometime and to get the movie. I think I described it as a giant round mouse, and I don't know how she managed to find it based on that description, but somehow she did, and I watched it 2 times in a row. You know how little kids can do that? Just like watch a movie back to back. When I was 8, Howl's Moving Castle came out in theaters, and the mystery of it was stuck in my mind. I loved how little was shown, how it felt like just a peek into this vast real world. When I was a little bit older, I watched Princess Mononoke with a friend of mine. That one blew my mind. San was incredible. It filled me with this feeling of awe and intrigue. It made me feel like I was small and sitting in this massive, magical world. When I was in 3rd grade, Avatar The Last Airbender premiered. I remember when I saw the first ad for it on TV, I went to school and everyone was talking about this cool new show with a little bald kid and a guy who could throw fire around. I used to play soccer. I was really into it. I played for 9 years and I hardly ever missed a practice. But it just so happened that the first episode of Avatar was airing right as I had to leave for soccer practice. I saw like the first 10 minutes and I was so captivated. And I was begging to skip practice, but of course I had to go, and luckily they aired the episode again the next day. And for the next 3 years, until I was in middle school, I watched the show religiously. It ended when I think it was the summer before my seventh grade year. And I really feel like it was the perfect age for me to grow up with that show. And I feel so lucky to have been able to watch it growing up. It inspired me endlessly. I wanted to tell stories, and I wanted to tell stories like these with magic and cool creatures and real emotions. When I go back and watch these movies and episodes again, I still feel that same feeling. I was always in an imaginary world as a kid. I wrote constantly and drew constantly. My best friend and I were always thinking of worlds with laws and creatures and characters and big stories. We loved to hike in nature and to come up with storylines. In seventh grade, we would walk up and down this one street that had a patch of forest in the middle. I grew up in Santa Cruz, California, and it was a good place with lots of open space to wander. As I got older, there were other pieces of media that inspired me the same way. I know it had a pretty split audience reaction, but when I saw Where the Wild Things Are, it tugged at my heart. It was a book I grew up with, and being 12 years old, sitting in that theater, the emotions in the movie felt really real. When I was in high school, The Lion King came back into theaters in 3D, and seeing it again on the big screen was awesome. There's this theater in Santa Cruz called the Del Mar, and they would do midnight movies of Studio Ghibli films, and I used to go with a huge group of friends, like 10 or 20 of us, and we would have the best times. In 2012, a movie called Beasts of the Southern Wild came out, and I felt like a little kid again in a big magical world. The theme song from that movie, it's called Once There Was a Hush Puppy. It's still one of my favorite songs to listen to when I want to feel that feeling. It sounds kind of corny when I try to talk about it, but it's important too, I think. I'm sure every one of you has a different list of inspiring things, things that just resonate. I want to create something that I can resonate with and that hopefully other people can resonate with too. That's the driving force behind this project of mine. I really appreciate you guys being here and watching these videos and watching it develop. It really means a lot to me. The quality of the discussion that goes on in the comments is just top notch too. I really have enjoyed reading your comments and reading the discussion, and that's another thing that inspires me really is this community we have, the discussions we have, and the way everyone lifts each other up. It's exactly the direction that I want this industry to constantly be moving in. I see on Instagram all these amazing studies and the way that you guys are all out there supporting each other. Truth is, I really feel like we're in this together. There's this ever expanding audience for art, and the more we boost each other, the bigger that audience will grow. The way that I view it is that if one person who was unfamiliar with art gets pulled into this community by an artist, every single artist in the community benefits. That's one more person who's there to be a fan of art, to support artists. That's another person who might discover Patreon or Kickstarter, or who might go see artists at conventions. I've been making a conscious effort to let the people I follow know when I really like a post of theirs or a piece of theirs. And I really want to explore the collaborative nature of this industry and community in the future on this channel. I have one collab video planned. It should be coming out soon, and I'm excited to do more like it in the future to involve some of my artist friends in this channel. I love to talk to different artists about their careers and their experiences, and I think that YouTube provides a great platform for that. And of course, I'm excited to continue this project of mine and to reveal more as I go along. There will be 9 more of these creature paintings to come, and I'm very excited for that. This piece is called Halfling because this wild dog is himself a halfling. He's halfway between the first life cycle and the second, being consumed slowly by a blue fungus. He wanders around in the fog by the cliffs, for now alone. To many he's a demon, so he stays hidden, finding safety in the thick sea fog. So I'd love to hear from you guys too. What inspires you? What practical things do you do to motivate yourself? And also what pieces of media and what experiences inspire you? I'll be down in the comments like usual, reading and talking. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more like this, subscribe to my channel. I'll be putting out a new video every week. Alright guys, I'll see you next time.